Hi everyone. My name is Alexandria Toscano. I am doing my action practitioner research on vocabulary acquisition for ELLs and students with disabilities. Who am I? So I am a mom and a wife. My name is Alexandria Toscano, but I actually prefer to go by Lolly. My husband and I have been married for almost 6 years, and we share a beautiful and wild 3-year-old daughter, Alina. I recently began my Master's of Arts in Education program at National University after realizing that I could strengthen my seniority, but also raise my salary. My master's program became even more of a priority this year as my district began to RIF or lay off hundreds of teachers to meet a 30 plus million deficit. I knew I could take my teaching elsewhere, but I love my students and the community that I have been teaching in for the past 5 years. So my research question, the goal with my research is to research the variety of best practices and effective first instruction lessons to determine what will work best for our most in-need students, especially in distance learning. So my research question is, what is the relationship between implementing a variety of vocabulary-focused technology tools and strategies and the measurements of one's vocabulary acquisition for high school English language learner students with a mild to moderate learning disability? I also want to focus on the relationship difference for English language learners compared to non-English language learners, and to also focus on the question, what are the strategies and or best practices that produce positive results among our most at-need students? So why do I want to investigate this topic? So I'm really passionate about my students and their needs. I often find myself advocating for them and teaching them how to advocate for their needs with other teachers. It can be rewarding, very rewarding to see them evolve into young adults. It's one of my favorite things about teaching. And English language learners and students with disabilities, they often need language instruction and supports in their classrooms. I personally don't see enough of it on my campus, and I would like to investigate the best practices that work best with these specific learners. And many educators kind of lack the resources and skills to merge content with language needs. I feel that that's a big focus personally in my own teaching and the teaching that I see in other classrooms. I believe that teachers could improve their instructions if they were given the appropriate resources. And also professional development to guide their implementation of ELLs and student with disability supports. Lastly, I believe that it is essential that we consider our students' learning environment, especially distance learning. Many of our most in-need students are struggling horribly right now. I know from personal experience with my own caseload of special ed students that many of them are feeling intense amounts of anxiety, and because of that, they can't access the lessons. So I want to kind of investigate the best solutions and even if it's just a Band-Aid that can support these students in the distance learning platform. Why is this research important? So to me, this research is important because I would like to study the relationships between specific practices and student outcomes. I believe that our students' needs vary, and the demands to implement different considerations in our instruction can weigh heavily on teachers. Therefore, I would like to investigate the relationships between some of the best practices to determine which ones produce the best results with our students, and also to consider the students' response to the activities. Do they enjoy it? Do they find it helpful? Were they engaged? And my methodology, so in my research, I plan to set up a plan to determine how my data will begin and where it will go step by step. I plan to take into consideration what and how the data will be used. I would also like to identify the most effective strategies and tools to support vocabulary acquisition in ELLs and students with disabilities. Lastly, I feel, as always, and the most beneficial step is to reflect. So my focus group for this study will consist of 10 SDC students and 10 RSP students. In this group, I will have a mixture of monolingual and bilingual students. Most of the students that are bilingual speak English and Spanish. I plan to collect data using research instruments such as pre-assessments, reflections for both students and educators, interviews, and observations with the purpose of identifying the most effective first instruction and best practices related to vocabulary acquisition for English language learners and students with disabilities. So some of the research instruments that I chose are here. One is at the beginning, which is a unit vocabulary pretest. This instrument will help me establish a starting point. With this form, I can identify what my students already know. This data can be compared to or with a post-unit vocabulary test. The other instrument on the right is an exponential function vocabulary Padlet. This Padlet provides students with resources in one place. They have examples, definitions, visuals, infographics, simulations, etc. And I plan to utilize this Padlet to determine if this one-stop shop is an effective way for students to obtain vocabulary resources. I also plan to provide a survey with 2 students to see how they connected to the Padlet. So this data will tell me how effective this type of supplemental tool can be for ELLs and students with disabilities. I also plan to do this kind of repeat type of approach with different types of instructional supports. So what are my resources? My resources kind of will continue to expand. However, so far I've collected a mixture of peer-reviewed articles that I have put into my report that include past research reports. I plan to collect data. I plan to collect professional reflections and feedback from my own critical friend, and usage of the NU library and other databases. I also have access to a family member who is a professor at SDSU, who also shares insight on my research and planning as well. So reflecting back and reflecting forward, if I could travel back in time, I would probably tell myself to brace yourself. You are about to enter into a world of writing, research, and planning. I would also tell myself it's possible and you can do it. I would tell myself to share questions and have conversations as often as possible about my research so that I'm familiar with all the components. I would also like to encourage myself to set aside time to organize my own research outside of the coursework. I personally did not initially brainstorm, and I feel that if I did, I would have understood all components of my research and how it would develop over time. Nonetheless, my plans moving forward are to complete my research and share resources with my colleagues. I would love to eventually organize professional developments at my site and maybe even at the district level. But I feel like for me, that would take a lot of self-growth to be able to have that much confidence. But the idea is to share as much as possible what my research findings are. Thank you for listening to the details on my research. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.